The wild card in the National League and the Western Division in the American League are starting to show some clarity, but it's still pretty chaotic.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. You can call me Sully. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who apparently is a big Montreal Expos fan, and I have been a member of the Locked On Podcast Network for the last 5 seasons, and we're now in the final week of the regular season, which is always kind of sad for me. Follow me at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, and you can follow us there. And also, we have at least once a week, every week, my co-host for the day is
Millard Thomas, host of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Please hit subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel. And I have some big news. On Friday, I officially became a father. I am now a cat dad, Sully. Woo! Exciting. My first son. I am very
cat dad Sully. Do 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 do. I was going to do Cat Scratch Fever, which was a Ted Nugent song. But hey, congratulations! What I assume you've named the cat Goldschmidt. What's the name of your cat? Cattell Marte.
You know, we're 2 days in. We're still searching for a name. Right now, we're just workshopping with Kitty. So if you have any name suggestions for us, don't be afraid to reach out on Twitter, comment section on YouTube. We are taking all suggestions for the name right now. And
put a hashtag Millard Cat. Cat, hashtag Millard Cat. We got to get our name for Millard's Cat. Hey, maybe Millard's Cat could be the name of our trivia question that I threw out the last time, and already have a couple of people answered it right. Court Stell, I got to have my my tournament of champions. Amy, Court Stell, Craig Brindle, all these people keep throwing the correct answer at me. John Murphy Jr. has been doing a good job of it. The question was, who was the oldest World Series MVP in baseball history? The oldest World Series MVP in baseball history. Do you know the answer to it?
Steve Pearce.
No, actually not. That's not a bad guess.
He's kind of old, right? He's like
he was not a spring chicken. The answer is Willie Stargell, who was the MVP of the first World Series I ever watched as a kid in 1979, and he was 39 years old when he was when Pops, who is now, that's 12 years younger than I am now, they were calling him Pops, led the Pittsburgh Pirates to a World Series champion, to the disco beat of "We Are Family." So there you go.
How high is David Ortiz on that list? He has to be like kind of top 5.
Yeah. Actually, do you want that? I'm going to look that up. I'm going to go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. Okay, David Ortiz. They called him Big Papi.
They called him Big Papi. Greatest World Series run I've ever saw.
2013, he was 37.
Mm-hmm.
He was a year younger.
Yeah, so
you had Big Papi and you had Pops.
You had to be right there.
There you go. Hey, this weekend was a weekend of bizarre anarchy. Of course, on Sunday's show, I'm not going to get too into the weeds. We are going to talk a little bit about the NL wild card in segment 2, including the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are inching closer and closer and closer to a wild card status. But let's talk first about the American League West. An astonishing turn of events have happened. Just a week and a half ago, the Rangers were not a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
They had fallen out. They were no longer. They were trailing the third wild card team, and today, despite every effort to hand the game to the Seattle Mariners, the Rangers held on for a razor-thin 9-8 victory. And with that, the Rangers completed their sweep of the Seattle Mariners. And the Rangers, who lost DeGrom, who lost Scherzer, whose bullpen has been an abject disaster, who went onto that massive tailspin, and are finding themselves with less than a week to go in first place by themselves in the American League West. And the magic number is 5 for them to be not only the American League West champion, but have completely skip over the wild card round. This razor-thin race suddenly became the Rangers to lose. And unless they have another epic faceplant, then this has been an astonishing turn of events for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, one of my dark horse teams entering the year. And when you look at this final stretch for them, yeah, they're going to have, those top dogs like the DeGroms and Scherzers on the rotation. But you look at that lineup, they're completely healthy right now for the final stretch. You got Ardarlis Garcia back. Corey Seager's in there smashing. You got your rookie Yash Young back. So when you look at the Texas Rangers lineup, that's been an offense that's been able to carry them at different points of the season. We looked at that Rangers differential. It was so great because that offense was just smashing their way those first 3 months of the season. Hit a little bit of a slump in August, of course, post All-Star break, but during this final stretch of the season with that offense completely healthy, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that lineup carries them through this final stretch of games to that division title. Really what it comes down to is this Mariners versus Astros battle potentially for, that final wild card spot, because it seems like the Blue Jays is going to get that second wild card spot. AL East team is going to get that number 1 spot. So which AL West team is going to get that final wild card spot? The idea of the Houston Astros, a team that I have written in pen to make the postseason, the idea of them not making the playoffs in the final 6 games of the season. And they do face the D-backs in the final 2 games of the year. So the D-backs, once again, going to have major implications in this AL West race.
Yeah, but I mean, the D-backs are now. There is an incredible thing that happened as well, and this is, again, I can't stress this enough, that you cannot mark your calendar to say, hey, an easy win is coming up. The Astros went to Kansas City.
Yep.
102 loss Kansas City Royal team, and they're facing the Astros. And the whole mentality was Seattle and Texas are going to beat the snot out of each other, while Houston has the easy time of it at home against Kansas City. And what happened? Sweet. The Royals swept them. Absolutely swept them. And starting tomorrow, the Astros are playing the Seattle Mariners in Seattle. Castillo versus Verlander. Now, let me paint a picture for you here. If, and this is not an outrageous statement, if Seattle wins a game at home with their best pitcher on the mound, if that happens tomorrow, then we are in the final week of the season, and the Astros would be on the outside looking in of the postseason.
Which would be insane. While the Rangers are playing the Angels, which I would think would be a much easier series, but we just saw with the Kansas City Royals sweeping the Astros, you cannot bank on easy wins at all. So it looks like if the Rangers, who are throwing Gray against Sandoval, the Troutless Angels, the Ohtani-less Angels, if the Rangers can win that series, they will they will essentially have eliminated the Astros or Mariners, one of those two, and either way they're going to be chipping away at their magic number, and we could see the Rangers be the American League West champions by the weekend, which is, to me, absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, and when you look at that Astros versus Mariners series, I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to come down to who owns the tiebreaker. And the Astros entered that series against the Mariners 2-8 against the Mariners this season. The Mariners have completely owned the Astros this year. So the Astros have no chance of catching the Mariners in that tiebreaker. So they have to go in there. They have to win the series, and they have to finish ahead of the Mariners if the Astros do want to make it to the postseason. They cannot finish with the same record as the Mariners.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, but we come back. The wild card, while a tiny bit clearer, is still pretty dang wild. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. All right, we're here doing our Monday runaround. Hey, for those of you who are just waking up on Monday, check your podcast catcher because I dropped a new episode on both Saturday and on Sunday. Saturday's show, we took a bounce around the league, and we also paid tribute to friend of the podcast, Sean Doolittle, who used to he had recorded the intro to the old Sully Baseball Daily podcast.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful, wonderful guy with a terrific 11-year career, and I think he's going to have a long career as a broadcaster as well because he's a very funny, affable guy. And then yesterday, I broke down the insanity that was the 13-12 game where apparently the Steelers beat the Bengals 13-12 in the game yesterday. It was absolutely insane. So catch up a little bit there on a couple of additional episodes of Locked On MLB. I'm going to be recording them left and right this entire week. If I take a day off, it's because the dog hasn't woken me up yet. But what's not taking a day off is the NL wild card, which would be a little more interesting if the Rockies had held on to their leads on Saturday and Sunday, because that would bring the Cubs a little closer. The Reds actually held on to beat the Pirates, and Joey Votto gave a very heartfelt speech to the Cincinnati Red fans as this could be his last home game in Cincinnati. A little tear to your eye seeing a guy who is a throwback guy, plays his whole career with one team. But as it stands right now, we have the wildcard teams. Philadelphia looks pretty secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're locked.
They're locked, and they look good.
Yeah.
They don't pick
the Braves.
I don't pick them over Los Angeles or Atlanta in a league championship series matchup. But, man, I could see them pulling off an upset and getting to the league championship series. Your Diamondbacks showed up and confirmed that Carlos Rodon was a bust his first season with the Yankees. Mm-hmm. Absolute, for people my age, that's an Ed Whitson, Kenny Rogers, Kayagawa Bustarinho. Okay. Hey, Zach Gallen looked like a Cy Young contender today.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, he's not going to finish as a finalist, but at least he looked like he could be back on track for the postseason at least.
You would rather see him win those games in October in a series where you're going to be facing the D-backs will probably be facing Philly. Is that who they be? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, maybe Gallen versus like Nola game one or Gallen Wheeler game one.
That's a heck of a matchup, but I give a slight edge to Gallen, although Nola is terrific. I mean, like the Phillies are going to be a tough team.
Yeah, I mean, their lineup is insane. So, I mean, there's no walk in the park, especially going into Philadelphia, too, one of the most raucous crowds in Major League Baseball. I mean, that's not going to be a fun environment for the D-backs.
No, but they've stared them down before. Mm-hmm. It looks like the Brewers, Their magic number is down to 1. They were not helped by the fact that the Rockies got pounded in. Well, they didn't get pounded; they just lost a bunch of close games in Wrigley. But they'll get either 1 win or 1 Chicago loss, and so that will mean the Brewers right now are lined up to play Chicago, but Miami is right on their heels, absolutely right on their heels, and Miami, give them credit because they looked bad the other day. They got their butts handed to them the other day, and John Bird hits the big home run, and they wound up beating the Milwaukee Brewers 6-1, spoiling their hopes to clinch the division today. And as it stands right now, in the wild card chase, you have, as I said, Philadelphia is up by 4.5. That's great. Arizona is only half a game ahead of Chicago, who's only half a game ahead of the Marlins. So no one's locked in stone just yet. And in the coming up, the D-backs play the Yankees, who, by the way, are officially eliminated.
Yep, D-backs did that.
And they're starting Kelly against Schmidt. And a loss for the Yankees would put them at 500. I'm just saying that out of pure schadenfreude. But a win for the Diamondbacks goes a long way to giving them not really wiggle room, but at least making sure other people have to keep pace with them.
Yeah, D-backs need everyone they could get. That would be huge. I really do think the Marlins are going to take that final wildcard spot just because, I don't know how serious the Braves are going to play at the end of the season. We just saw them get smacked up by the Phillies, but the Cubs, their final 2 series are against the Atlanta Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. So they're going against 2 division leading, teams, and the Marlins are only going against the Pirates and the New York Mets, 2 teams not in the postseason mix. Maybe those teams want to play spoiler down the stretch, but I think the Marlins are going to take this final wild card spot. We're going to be handing out some awards later. Maybe one of their, team members, managers gets one of the awards, but I like the Marlins to take that final wild card spot. The Chicago Cubs, they've been kind of up and down the last couple of weeks. We've seen David Ross, the manager of that team, kind of call out his team saying, what are we doing out here? We shouldn't be losing to a team like this. Who was, I think they were against either the Colorado Rockies or the Pittsburgh Pirates, where it's like, we're a way better team than they are, and we should be beating them up right now. And it didn't happen. And we'll see if that kind of message can get through to these players and kind of spark them for this final stretch of the season. But I just love everything the Marlins have done post All-Star break, and I think they're going to take that final wild card spot.
Yeah, I think they are too, but nothing seems to make sense anymore. A few weeks ago, I would have bet everything that the Rangers would have been the team on the outside looking in. The Rangers bullpen we had done a show. You and I did a show where the thumbnail was Texas Fold'em. It was one of my most watched episodes we've ever had. And I was saying, I had the bugle. I was going, brr, brr, brr. And all of a sudden we're now looking up and now they're going to probably clinch the division. By the way, what this really does to me is it's all but, in a way, it's telling me that unless Minnesota goes on a rampage in October, I would I would say that the American League champion is going to come out of the East. Because if you saw how you've seen how the Blue Jays are hitting, the Rays had some big clutch hits, and Baltimore got a great performance from Means. They got a great performance from Gibson. Right now, if I'm a betting man, I'm saying, again, I'm standing by my Baltimore-Atlanta World Series. That's where I think we're going right now. But it's the Western teams just look very vulnerable right now, all of them. And if the Rangers win the division, which it looks like they're going to, they get the bye, and they're going to start Jordan Montgomery. Mm-hmm. But that bullpen's going to blow a playoff game.
Yeah,
you know it.
And the fact that they don't have those 2 top dogs in the rotation, like if you told me you at least had a Scherzer in that Rangers rotation with the Evaldes and the Montgomerys, like I think I would actually pick the Rangers to come out the American League instead of an AL East team, just because I don't know how translatable that super young Baltimore teams are going to be, or the Tampa Bay Rays, who I just think are always going to be a regular season team. I kind of like the AL West in terms of teams in terms of teams that have championship equity. I kind of like the Astros and Rangers and even like the Seattle Mariners over a team like the Baltimore Orioles or Tampa Bay Rays. But it's kind of crazy that only one of those teams is like, or two of those teams are going to make it to the postseason.
Yeah, I was about to say, there is a possibility the Astros may miss the playoffs altogether. Yeah. It is not, and not an outlandish one. Yeah, again, if Seattle wins a series at home against a team that just got swept by the Kansas City Royals, then we're going to the final weekend of the season where all the Mariners have to do is keep pace with the Astros, and then we do not have a defending. We'll have a new American League champion for the first time since COVID.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, the Astros have just freaking ran that American League. I mean, they've been in the championship series every year since 2017. So it would be a little bit of a surprise if they did make the postseason, because this is a team, like you said, that could miss the playoffs. But if they faced off against Tampa Bay or Baltimore, like I would still pick Houston in that series, despite them potentially missing the playoffs within the next week. One under the radar kind of storyline that was kind of funny from the past couple of weeks, the San Diego Padres just went on like a little 8-game winning streak. They were like, you know what? We win another 2 games. It might be like 3.5 back with like 6 to play. Like they were kind of sneaky, just hanging on by like one fingernail on the cliff.
Yeah. I mean, what killed them was the fact that the Cubs went on a 3-game winning streak against the Rockies. If the Cubs had lost that series to Colorado, that would have compressed everything. But right now, the magic number to eliminate, or the tragic number to eliminate the San Diego Padres, is 2.
Ooh.
So they would basically have to run the table and have the Cubs lose all their games and all the teams. It's too much. It's too much.
They want to feel good about themselves. They could finish ahead of the Giants potentially. They want to feel good.
Well, they are now 1 game. Right as we're recording this, they're 1 game behind the Giants. So there you go.